tell you something, all that glitters ain't gold. Hey, hey, it's been a long old troublesome road, and I'm looking for somebody come and help me carry this load. I need a dollar, that's what I need. Hey, hey, well I need a dollar, that's what I need.
KBLA Talk 1580, it's Freedmen Friday. Freedmen Friday happens the second hour of this show every single week, and I'm excited to welcome in a change maker, someone we've never had a chance to talk to on this microphone before. He has received so many awards and recognitions that if I was to list them all, we wouldn't have time to talk. But he has been a catalyst for personal and social change for more than 20 years. He was senior pastor of Pleasant Hope Baptist Church in Baltimore, Maryland from 2008 to 2022. In 2015, he launched the Black Church Food Security Network, which is a national alliance of more than 200 congregations that work together to co-create Black food ecosystems anchored by Black churches in partnership with Black farmers and producers. Among the many awards, the Ella Baker Freedom Fighter Award. He's also, like I said, I could go on and on with all of these, but in 2023, he received humanitarian awards from both the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference and the Morgan State University Baltimore Alumni Chapter. And he is, I'm just going to have to keep throwing in some of your accolades here and there. He's presented and lectured at many institutions of higher learning. Reverend Dr. Heber Brown, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be with you.
I am excited to have you in. Certainly, we see, just reading about you, you are definitely in the tradition of the liberation theologist, and I'm so happy to see that reemerging after we got deeply into the kind of prosperity gospel to the point where we were kind of abandoning people.
Yeah, I'm grateful to be in the path and tradition of so many in that Black liberatory theological framework. People like Reverend Albert Clegg Jr. and people like the Honorable Marcus Garvey, and yes, I do place him in that framework as well, and so many others. And so, and really, I'll just say there are a number of us who still are faithful and committed to that way of approaching ministry. The microphones aren't as big, the stages aren't as large, but the work continues in local communities, and we're grateful.
And you're coming out of Baltimore, Maryland, and of course, when it comes to reparations, your state has been in the news and quite a hot button because of the veto by your governor of reparations legislation there. The governor said we're past time for studies. Governor Wes Moore, we need action. What did you make of that? Do you buy that argument? Where are we with that now, in your view?
Yeah, I think that Governor Moore is a brilliant man, but on this particular point, he misunderstands what reparations is. Our governor is working very hard in Maryland to further inspiring programs and direct investment in a lot of community organizations. And while I applaud and I appreciate that, there is a difference between the programs of a single gubernatorial administration and an official reparations policy for the state of Maryland. I think that's an important distinction. One day, Governor Moore is not going to be the governor of Maryland anymore. And his programs will follow him, and the next and new administration will bring their programs to the table. What we're seeking is an embrace of reparations policy that has greater chance of surviving changing administrations and more officially honors the harms done to Black people in this state. And that can't be tied to any one administration. And so it's important that we draw distinctions between one governor's plans and an official posture of the state to not only recognize the ways that it has furthered slavery and harms against Black people, but then also codify that in ways that we can repair the damage done to our community.
It's such a great point. I mean, we look at what's happening with the current administration on the federal level. All of these things that we thought were, were just policy or were considered norms are going by the wayside because there's new leadership. So that makes sense. What is the church's role in reparations, in getting reparations for Black American freedmen or descendants of enslaved persons?
Yeah, I think that, what I would love to see is more Black churches organizing, advocating, pressing our elected officials to support this, and then also tying a theological position around reparations. I think we got a little bit of a divided mind, in the words of Reverend Raphael Warnock, a divided mind between our theology and our politics. And so we'll go to church and we preach and we shout and we talk about this God who liberates us from oppression, this God who gives us strength to stand up against the giants in our lives. But then after the service is over, we walk out back into our communities and our theology is muted when it comes to political realities that impact the people in our congregations and our neighborhoods. And so I think there's some real deep work that needs to be done there around really, as you said in my intro, embracing more of a liberatory theological framework that does not make distinction between what we say hallelujah about on Sunday morning and what we show up at the State House to advocate for on Monday afternoon.
It's well said. And when you talk about a theological, spiritual foundation, if you will, for the idea, the concept of reparations in the United States, how do you see that? I mean, I've heard some folks arguing against reparations in the sense that, we need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We need to do the work ourselves, that even the psychological and mental health healing that needs to be done, that kind of repair is our own job. It's not the job of the government. It's not the job of corporations or institutions.
Yeah, I definitely have heard that. I think that it's important. It's important to pay attention to when those kinds of arguments are lifted. It's really interesting to me that arguments against reparations get quite loud when it comes to Black people. But when it comes to other communities, they're quiet as a mouse. So when you think about the Jewish community in this country, when you think about Japanese communities in this country, there are other communities that have received reparations. This is not unheard of. I'm really grateful for the work of people like Dr. Raymond Winbush out of Morgan State University, who has written extensively about reparations. And his book really does give a strong outline of all of the ways that the United States has furthered and supported reparations for other communities. And so I just pay attention to when people get loud and when they get quiet. And I just find it quite interesting, and in fact, beyond interesting, hypocritical, that we have critique about Black people getting reparations for historical harms committed by this country. But when it comes to other communities, people are quiet about that. I think, additionally, I would say that from a faith perspective, the concept and ethic of repair is found throughout our Holy Scriptures and is embraced as an ethic of our faith. Repairing harms that have been done is a part of how people of faith understand their relationship with God and each other in so many different ways. And so I do think it's disingenuous when people try to lift up an argument that says we got to forget about what happened in the past, when that's not what is voiced when it comes to what our faith says about, making things right, making effort to make things right when you have done harm. There are literal scriptures that speak to why it's important to go and make repair. And so even from a religious standpoint, from a faith perspective, whether you're talking about the Bible, you're talking about the Torah, you're talking about the Gospels, you're talking about the Quran, you're talking about the Bhagavad Gita, pick a holy book, and you will find the spiritual ethic of repair somewhere within the pages and practiced in the faith. And again, I'm just saying that should flow also to how we address the issue of reparations for Black people in this country, too.
Reverend Dr. Heber Brown is our guest. He's out of Baltimore, Maryland, where they've had a lot of conversation and a lot of activism around the issue of reparations. It's a Freedmen Friday, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS. Visit lifelock.com. Terms apply.
Guys, don't propose with a ring that she didn't pick out. Trust us, she already has a ring in mind. So engage with Gage Diamonds, in person or online, where Gage's skilled ring designers will work with her to create the perfect setting, matched with the perfect stone. Gage specializes in exquisite lab-grown diamonds. Financing available. GageDiamonds.com. We're engagement's middle name.
Head to the Skirball Cultural Center for a thought-provoking contemporary art exhibition, Draw Them In, Paint Them Out. Trenton Doyle Hancock confronts Philip Guston. Explore resonant connections between the work of American Jewish painter Philip Guston and the work of Trenton Doyle Hancock, a leading Black American contemporary artist, in dialogue for the first time. While engaging with the artwork, consider the role that artists play in the pursuit of social justice. Plan your visit at skirball.org.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 80% water, right? It doesn't clean as well.
80% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure, concentrated cleaning ingredients.
Oh, let me make an announcement.
Attention shoppers, if you want a real deal, try Tide Pods.
Stop paying for watered-down detergents. Pay for clean. If it's gotta be clean, it's gotta be Tide Pods. Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent.
The conversation continues right now with Dominic DePrima on First Things First.
And we're talking to Reverend Dr. Heber Brown. He's on the MLK Board of Preachers at Morehouse. He's also just a very accomplished activist, pastor, and former pastor of the senior pastor at the Pleasant Hope Baptist Church in Baltimore, Maryland. You wrote a fascinating piece about environmental justice and reparations based on a bill. It's called Environmental Justice is a Reparations Issue. I found it fascinating because you were talking about your Governor Wes Moore's executive order, which is meant to sort of coordinate all of the environmental justice pieces that are falling into place in the state of Maryland. And created an Interagency Environmental Justice and Equity Advisory Council. And you frame this as, okay, this is a great thing, and correct me if my interpretation here is wrong, but it's like, okay, this is a great thing, but it would be even better if we had reparations in place because environmental justice is racial justice.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to make those kind of ties because there can be such a temptation to think about reparations just as something that happened 100 years ago. But I think it's important that we look at the ways that the ripple effects of the harms done to formerly enslaved African people still affect us to this very day. So, for example, many communities in this nation are communities that have been affected by food apartheid. There are Black people all over the country who find great difficulty with respect to obtaining nutrient-rich food for themselves and their families. They often decry that it's hard to find a grocery store in their neighborhood. However, it is easy to find a dialysis center. So when they look at their everyday everyday experience living in their community, they can say, oh, man, we got corner stores, bodegas, we got dialysis centers, we don't have grocery stores, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's important that we tie that back to 1933 when the United States government produced these redlining maps where they were determining in the early 30s which communities would be ones where there would be ample and abundant investment, where there would be food, jobs, quality education. And then they also determined the communities where there would not be as much investment, the less desirable places to live. Well, Black people were pushed into those areas, and those areas literally on the map had red lines around them. So we were redlined as a community. Those redline communities oftentimes also were near landfills or industrial sites that brought about health challenges for our immediate ancestors and still bring about health challenges and harms to the environment, the physical environment, the soil, the water, the air where we live. That's an example of how I believe we need to point to the history, explore the current impact, and then through a reparative framework, recognize that the state has obligation to address these very real outcomes of government action that negatively impact the lives of Black people today. And so for me, that connection between reparations, environmental concerns, and climate justice, it all comes to bear in that type of relationship.
I think such a good point, because one of the things that the California Reparations Task Force really hammered home was that it's not just about enslavement. It's about Jim Crow and the subsequent harms. And many of those harms, per your description right now, are still in place and still active today.
Absolutely. I just got back from, earlier this month, I was in Memphis, Tennessee, and activists are organizing there in Memphis around a community called Boxtown, where data centers are being proposed. Data centers are already there, but then the expansion of these data centers owned by Elon Musk are being proposed. When you go to that area, you literally can smell the pollution of the data centers in the air. This community of Boxtown has historically been a place where industry has gone and has negatively impacted the soil, the water, and the air of that community. And no surprise to anybody, there's a disproportionate level of health impacts for the people who live in Boxtown. Now, you can guess who lives in Boxtown.
Right.
Black people.
Right.
Right? And so to your point, because you can reach back far and look at the pattern of abuses against communities like Boxtown, and then look at what is still happening today, you are exactly right. We're not talking about just way back in the day. I'm talking about my grandmama. I'm talking about my auntie, my uncle, folks who are still living and breathing, and cousins, people who are still living and breathing and who are still being impacted. And so we have to address it in such a way where we see the historical piece, but drive that van all the way into present day impacts on our community and resist the temptation to make us feel like this is ancient news that we should just get over.
Well, you point out in your piece that African Americans are disproportionately impacted by floods, heat waves, and extreme weather, and pollution, and all of the health challenges that creates. Well, when you talk about environmental justice and reparations, how do they overlap? I mean, I get that racial justice and climate justice are hand in hand because of environmental racism, because of these disproportionate impacts, the food deserts that you described, which are all over LA, where we're broadcasting from, by the way. But how would reparations help, or how is reparations related to that in your mind?
Sure. And so there are so many examples where national and multinational corporations set up shop in communities where they negatively harm the soil, the water, the air, the environment. Now, at the same time that they are causing harm to their immediate neighbors, they are profiting. They are making enormous amounts of money for whatever product or service that they're providing beyond that immediate community. And the argument is they should not be allowed to profit off of whatever their lane or line of business is at the expense of their immediate neighbors, at the expense of those who live closer to them, and while infringing upon our human right to clean water, clean air, and viable soils. And so the argument around environmental justice is no company should be allowed to become so powerful that it can infringe on human rights, poison and contaminate the natural environment while making multi-millions around the world with government support. And so if the government and if corporations are going to further and support this practice of profiting off of the harms of local communities and the natural environment, then we need to continue to raise our voice to say there needs to be accountability. These government actors and companies need to be challenged, and they need to make repair for poisoning the water, the air, the soil, and the people who live within the geographic footprint of where they're located.
Mm. So then when you view reparations, Dr. Heber Brown, Reverend Doctor, do you see it as being a corporate responsibility, a government responsibility on the state, on the city, on the county level, federal level, all of the above, the institutions, the church? Where does reparations really rest as far as the responsibility?
Yeah, I think it's hand in glove with respect to corporations and the government. I think that, and government could be on multiple levels. I think that it's important that we do the deep study to explore the harms that have been done. So, for example, I'm thinking about in this moment, I would remember some years ago being very inspired by the work of, I think it's Alderman Dorothy Tillman. And she put forward legislation in Chicago that would require that every company that wanted to do business with the government had to produce a report to share if they had any ties to slavery first. So you got to produce a report, you got to open up the books and show if there was any ties to slavery before we can talk about the company doing business with the government. That action helped to show and prove the ways that current companies had connection to slavery, and it gave people the information. That's why I think it was a brilliant move. It gave people the information that oftentimes is pushed in the back of the room or not discussed, not brought out. And so that's why, for me, this government and corporate connection is important when you're talking about the reparations movement, because we need to be able to get the data and information that there are so many who are fighting hard not to share. We got to put the sunlight on that. And oftentimes it's through these government and corporate intersections where we got to push really hard. Now, you mentioned something I think is very interesting as well when it comes to the church. Should we be looking at churches as well?
Hold that thought, Dr. Heber. We will address it after news, traffic, and sports. It's a Freedmen Friday on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Chadwick Boseman has a new star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The late Black Panther actor was honored Thursday with director Ryan Coogler calling him our most incredible jewel.
He reflected light, he refracted it, and when he did, he showed the greatness of our people.
Boseman died in 2020 at age 43 from colon cancer. Congress may soon make it harder to censure lawmakers. A bipartisan plan backed by Speaker Mike Johnson and leader Hakeem Jeffries would raise the threshold from a simple majority to 60%. It follows 3 censure votes in 1 week. And Paramount is cutting nearly 200 Hollywood jobs after its $8 billion merger with Skydance. The company plans to eliminate about 2,000 positions, around 15% of its workforce, to save $3 billion over the next 2 years. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The way the Clippers are playing, they're going to mess around and get Coach Ty Lue fired, and it's not his fault. The Clippers are 4-11 after losing in Orlando Thursday night, 129-101. In their last 10 games, the Clippers are 1-9. And for the 9th straight game, Kawhi Leonard was in street clothes with an ankle injury. If Leonard sprained his ankle, it's taken him a long time to recover. I've seen players bounce back from an ankle sprain in less than 2 weeks. Leonard hasn't played since November 3rd against Miami. If Leonard's ankle injury is serious, the Clippers need to say it. Clippers owner Steve Ballmer should be fed up with Leonard's injury problems. Leonard is one of 8 players on the Clippers roster over 30, making them the NBA's oldest team. Management did not do enough in the offseason to bring in younger talent, and Ty Lue is feeling the pain of that more than anyone. He really deserves much better than this. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Head to the Skirball Cultural Center for a thought-provoking contemporary art exhibition, Draw Them In, Paint Them Out. Trenton Doyle Hancock confronts Philip Guston. Explore resonant connections between the work of American Jewish painter Philip Guston and the work of Trenton Doyle Hancock, a leading Black American contemporary artist, in dialogue for the first time. While engaging with the artwork, consider the role that artists play in the pursuit of social justice. Plan your visit at skirball.org.
Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community-focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Hi, I'm Kylie.
I'm John.
And I'm Garrison.
And a little thing we love about the 30-count Chick-fil-A nuggets
is sharing it in the car during the holidays.
I do love that.
We will pack the car with gifts, and of course, we go and pick up our family's favorite nuggets.
Every nugget is tasty times quadrillion.
And we get all the sides.
Yeah, the ooey gooey mac and cheese is a big hit.
Everyone from 1 to 116 would love Chick-fil-A's chicken nuggets.
Share the nuggets, share the joy. Order the 30-count Chick-fil-A nuggets on the Chick-fil-A app. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick, and it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors when you need more comfort for yourself. Use as directed.
An official message from Medicare.
Medicare plans change from one year to the next. And this year, it's important for you to review your current coverage and compare all your options during Medicare open enrollment. Compare health plans, drug coverage, and costs. See if you can save some money, and don't forget to make sure your drugs are covered. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Visit Medicare.gov or call 1-800-MEDICARE.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
We're talking with Reverend Dr. Heber Brown, a reparationist, a change catalyst, and the founder of the Black Church Food Security Network on this Freedmen Friday. When we left off before news, traffic, and sports, you were about to dive into the role of the church in reparations and do the institutions of the church owe reparations? I think it's kind of a two-part question.
Yeah, I'm inspired and encouraged by the example of religious denominations that have concluded that they do have a role in furthering reparations and promoting reparations. So, for example, the Jesuit Conference of Canada and the United States a few years ago concluded that they owed reparations because as a religious body, they engaged in human trafficking and had close to 300 enslaved Africans in their ownership that they utilized to further their ministry, to pay clergy, to do forced labor on their lands and grounds. And so the Jesuit Conference of Canada and the United States determined that they needed to pay reparations for that. They pledged $100 million in reparations to the descendants of the enslaved people that they, quote unquote, owned in the mid-1800s. So I'm raising that as an example of a religious body that said yes to reparations and then put things in place to materialize the repair to the descendants of the people that they enslaved. Another quick example is the Episcopal Church of Washington, D.C. They also established a reparations committee and determined that because of their connection with the enslavement of African people, that they too needed to effectuate some kind of repair. And for them, that looked like $5 million over the course of 10 years, and that might have evolved even since then. But I raise these examples to help provide a point of reference to those who are curious about what religious bodies are already doing, and there are so many more on the issue of reparations. They can provide helpful pathway and template for what churches and denominations should be thinking about today as well.
Do you think the acceptance, understanding, or even advocacy of reparations is growing within the Black church?
You know what? If I'm being very candid with you, I think it is stalled in the Black church. And I say that with some heaviness of heart. I don't hear as many black churches taking up the mantle when it comes to reparations. And even if it's mentioned in passing in sermonic presentation, I'm not seeing black churches establish commissions or give encouragement to their social justice ministries, if they have one, to really be loud advocates for reparations. There may be many reasons why that is. One of them being that I think a lot of local churches, quite frankly, right now are overwhelmed and don't have the capacity to even sustain with excellence the programs that they already have. But again, also, I think, again, we don't have a theology that's meeting this moment. We don't have a wide embrace of an understanding of God and an understanding of church that can help us to meet the very challenges, including reparations, challenges and causes that are before us right now. So we have like this black evangelical Christianity that we, in many respects, received from the colonial Christianity lived out by white folks. And what can happen is you have black churches that are standing on foundation of white theology. So essentially it becomes white theology in blackface, even in the black church. And so we got a lot of work to do to embrace the kind of God thoughts and church thoughts that make central the liberation of black people. I mentioned this name, Reverend Albert B. Clegg Jr. He's one of the North Stars for me when it comes to how I understand myself as a minister. Reverend Albert B. Clegg Jr., founder of Black Christian Nationalism, would often say, there is nothing more sacred than the liberation of black people. And his entire theology would orbit around that claim. There's nothing more sacred than the liberation of black people. And I'm going to do everything I can to help more black churches get back to that kind of understanding.
Yeah, a lot of interesting points there. What is the spiritual repair? Is that part of it? Is the spiritual and psychological repair part of reparations?
To me, it is. I mean, I think the spiritual part of all of this is that ultimately, from a spiritual perspective, the goal is to restore relationship. At the base of it, from a spiritual perspective, from an ethical perspective, and a posture of faith, the ultimate goal is to acknowledge harms done so that the groundwork is laid for the restoration of relationship as we believe God intended. That if God created all of us equal in value, significance, and measure, then anything that disturbs that relationship that we have with each other also disturbs that relationship that we have with God. So we can't be right with God or one another until we make right, that we address the harms, and then ultimately, again, pave the way for being back in right relationship. To try to have a great relationship with God while ignoring the responsibilities of relationship with your sister or brother is not something that I believe is possible, because for God, the relationship with each other is oftentimes equated with the relationship with the divine too.
Oh, I think the first time I traveled to Africa, I went to Ghana. We were in the slave dungeon. They call them castles, whatever. They look like dungeons to me. A fight broke out. We were down inside one of the places where they held our ancestors, and a fight broke out with our travelers. There was about 40 of us that day, mostly black people from South LA, because we could see the church from inside the dungeon.
Yes.
And people were so angry. And some folks were saying, how can you be Christian? There were Muslims there. There were atheists. There were lots of Christians. And so I guess I say all of that to say, aside from literally selling persons to finance a church or, engaging congregations to advocate for reparations, how does the church come out from under the role of justifying our enslavement and subsequent exploitation under Jim Crow, et cetera, et cetera?
Wow. Well, Dominic, I stood in that same dungeon. I've been to Ghana 3 times, and I, too, was struck by the presence of the church at the slave castle.
Yeah.
And the stories that they told about there being a passageway that connected the quarters for enslaved women to the church so that white men could go down and grab and violate enslaved African women and then go back to their churchly duties. It was disheartening, to say the least. And so what we saw in that dungeon was, I believe, an example of what sin looks like. And so I think when you ask me the question, how do we address this especially from this religious perspective, we have to equate what happened to us as sin. We have to. It's this. Don't try to come up with some type of argument from No. This is sin. This is, if you want to point at sin, that's one of the clearest examples to me as to what sin is. And you are not going to find. You won't be easy to find a church that wants to make justification for sin. The position on sin is ironclad and clear. So if we can recognize slavery, Jim Crow, the abuses and violations of Black and brown people around the world as a theological violation classified as sin, then I think that would further motivate faith communities, particularly churches, to recognize that advocating for reparations is not optional. Just like we would not even begin to think about trying to justify what we understand as sin. If the position on sin is clear and we understand the enslavement of African people as sin, that our position should be equally clear as advocating for reparations.
So well said, but I suppose that's your job, Reverend Dr. Heber Brown. When we come forward, we're going to continue this conversation. It's meant to be a comprehensive conversation weekly on reparations. That's why we call it Freedmen Friday, and it's only on KBLA, Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at WalkGoodLA. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick, and it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors when you need more comfort for yourself. Use as directed.
An official message from Medicare.
Medicare plans change from one year to the next. And this year, it's important for you to review your current coverage and compare all your options during Medicare open enrollment. Compare health plans, drug coverage, and costs. See if you can save some money, and don't forget to make sure your drugs are covered. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Visit Medicare.gov or call 1-800-MEDICARE.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio, KBLA Talk 1580.
It's a Freedmen Friday, and I'm so happy to be in conversation with Reverend Dr. Heber Brown. I do want to let you know that special surprise I teed up at the beginning of the show is definitely on deck for hour 3, so you're going to want to keep it here with me. Dr. Brown is founder of the Black Church Food Security Network, and he's also a reparationist. Talk to me about where we are with the process in Maryland. I know the governor didn't sign the bill to create the commission. I know you continue to advocate for that, and others do as well. Is it dead in the water? Like, what are the next steps? Where do you see this going?
Yeah, so right now, as you said, Governor Moore did veto reparations here, but that was against the wishes of our legislative Black caucus. And soon after the governor's veto, many members of the caucus, including the leadership of the caucus, expressed their intention to do all they could to override that veto. And so our legislative session begins in January. And one of the things that is going to be a very hot discussion and topic will be if the Democratic Party will make good on what they initially said to work together to override the governor's veto in this coming session. Groups like Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle, which is a young adult public policy think tank, have really been one of the leading groups to outline the specifics of not only the reparations legislation, but also they're very active with many groups around the state on making sure that this topic of reparation does not fall through the cracks in this upcoming legislative session. At the time when the veto happened, there was some question about whether or not Governor Moore would throw his hat in the ring for the presidency. He has since said he is focused on Maryland and will be launching in his reelection campaign for governor. But nevertheless, we will continue to organize and spread the pressure around from the governor, but also to other elected officials, especially Black legislative leaders, to ensure that all is done, all that we can do is done to override that veto and move forward with the reparation legislation here in the state.
Yeah, I mean, Governor Wes Moore, like our governor here in California, Gavin Newsom, is on the list of folks keep citing as possible presidential, winners, candidates, nominees, and it seems like for people on that level, the issue of reparations is almost like kryptonite. They don't want to have it on their record to have to run on.
Exactly right. And, when I think about your governor and the governor here in Maryland, with all the talk around their, potential political aspirations, I think it creates a wonderful opportunity for activists because while the cameras and spotlight are on these quote-unquote rising stars, I guess, in the Democratic Party, or at least established folks who are trying to go to the next level, I think it also gives us a chance to continue to keep this issue front and center. While there will be people who say, don't do it right now, let's get them in office first. So let's support their administration first, and then on the back end, we can talk to them about reparations. I don't think that's wisdom. I think it's important for us to state and name your priorities and the issues that you care about right now, because the leverage that we have is not after the election, in my view. The greatest leverage for grassroots activists is before the election, because now you can situate your support or condition your support based off of that candidate's commitment to further the issues that you care about. And so I've never been one to think there's a lot of credence in let's get the person in office first. I think you name your agenda first and have the elected official or the candidates connect with your agenda, pledge support for your agenda, and then back that up as well. So I think Maryland and California, these two states are important to watch when it comes to the Democratic Party. And I think that activists and organizers should keep the heat on, in fact, turn it up even higher right now, despite what others might want us to do.
Yeah, I mean, as centrist as Vice President Kamala Harris ran, she actually didn't back off of her support for reparations on the campaign trail. I mean, she wasn't wearing a Reparations Now T-shirt, but she didn't disavow it. And I think if she can do that, from that centrist position, I don't want to hear any excuses about why other folks can't.
Especially in this political climate, Dominic, this is a moment when, people are barking loud about their positions without shame, without, like, this is not the time to play safe. This is not the time to play timid. This appears to be a time in this country where you got to say it with your chest. And so I would, encourage folks that who really support reparations to, again, bark loud, organize widely, and continue to push these candidates to say, no, we are bucking the quote unquote conventional wisdom that if you talk about reparations, you'll lose an election. Like, stop. This is not a radioactive topic. We're not accepting that anymore. We're not accepting traditional Democratic thoughts around these are the things you can't talk about. Here's what you can't talk about. No, I mean, how did that work out with the Democratic Party in the last elections? We put your feet down, stand 10 toes down. Let's bark loud about what we really need, what we really want, what we really care about, and continue to organize even after Election Day.
And if we're in a church, if we have a church home, should the congregation be the ones leading the way toward reparations if the church leadership is not doing it?
In my view, if you want to be right with God, yes, you are. You're organizing. You're creating small group discussions in your living room, Bible study groups, doing field trips to other places, you're meeting other organizers. As much as we love our religious leadership, your relationship with God is yours. For those who are Christian, you're not going to die and have to stand before the Lord and God's going to say, now, who was your pastor? Let me see who your pastor was before I let you through the gate. It's going to be about what you did in your relationship with God. And I think this is one of those issues where you got to step up.
Reverend Dr. Heber Brown III, tell us how to keep up with your work and all the things you're doing.
I would love to direct people to our website. We are growing food on Black church land all over this country and supporting Black farmers. Find out more at blackchurchpower.com. That's blackchurchpower.com. Or find me on all the socials. My name is Heber, Heber, last name Brown, like the color, and I am the third. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and all the socials.
Thank you so much for being with us this morning. It was a great conversation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, indeed, and we appreciate it as well. Special surprise, you are not going to want to miss this. Trust me, we got something Friday powerful next on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Chadwick Boseman has a new star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The late Black Panther actor was honored Thursday with director Ryan Coogler calling him our most incredible jewel.
He reflected light, he refracted it, and when he did, he showed the greatness of our people.
Boseman died in 2020 at age 43 from colon cancer. Congress may soon make it harder to censure lawmakers. A bipartisan plan backed by Speaker Mike Johnson and Leader Hakeem Jeffries would raise the threshold from a simple majority to 60%. It follows 3 censure votes in 1 week. And Paramount is cutting nearly 200 Hollywood jobs after its $8 billion merger with Skydance. The company plans to eliminate about 2,000 positions, around 15% of its workforce, to save $3 billion over the next 2 years. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The way the Clippers are playing, they're going to mess around and get Coach Ty Lue fired, and it's not his fault. The Clippers are 4-11 after losing in Orlando Thursday night, 129-101. In their last 10 games, the Clippers are 1-9. And for the 9th straight game, Kawhi Leonard was in street clothes with an ankle injury. If Leonard sprained his ankle, it's taken him a long time to recover. I've seen players bounce back from an ankle sprain in less than 2 weeks. Leonard hasn't played since November 3rd against Miami.